For just $100, this DIY Sunwall outperforms a $5,000 solar panel array, keeping your home warm for 8 solid hours after the sun drops. The Department of Energy swept this technology under the rug back in 1986, but here is the reality that rooftop solar reps deliberately leave out. A typical photovoltaic solar panel only turns about 18% of incoming sunlight into usable electricity. The remaining 82% is literally tossed away, venting right back into the sky as waste heat. That expensive roof setup is basically an 18% efficient slab mounted to your shingles. This Sunwall flips the math using foundational physics. Take 200 empty aluminum cans, coat them in matte black paint, and they will soak up 96% of the visible light hitting them. Rather than converting light into electricity, they drink it in as pure thermal energy straight into the aluminum structure. Every single photon striking that surface becomes trapped heat inside the metal, which then immediately transfers that warmth into the air flowing past. Zero wasted energy escapes back outside. Every drop of sunlight hitting that surface translates into usable heat for your living space. Yet, absorption is just part one of this equation. The real multiplier comes from surface area, which is exactly why cylindrical cans obliterate standard flat plate solar collectors. Think about a typical 3 by 6 foot panel on your roof. It gives you exactly 18 square feet of gathering space. That is it. Now imagine cramming 200 cans into that exact same 18 square foot footprint. Because every can is perfectly round, those curving sidewalls deliver a massive amount of extra catching surface that a flat piece of metal simply lacks. Do the calculations, and you are looking at nearly 7 times the total absorbing area within the exact same physical boundaries. To be precise, we are talking about 14,000 British thermal units for every square meter during peak daylight. That is the exact amount of thermal power a stack of black-painted cans extracts from the midday sun, according to rigorous heat transfer tests conducted by the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory in 1977. Put a conventional flat plate collector in that exact same space, and it only generates about 4,000 BTUs. The can setup essentially triples the output simply because those cylindrical shapes grab angled sunlight that completely bypasses a flat surface. You might be wondering, sure, they absorb more, but trapped heat does nothing if it stays stuck in the metal. That is exactly why the flat matte finish is critical. A glossy black coating will actually bounce about 12% of the light right back at the sky. A matte black finish bounces away less than 3%. The rough microscopic texture of flat paint forces the incoming light particles to scatter laterally into the aluminum rather than reflecting away. It is the reason every documented highly effective solar heater relies on high-heat flat black spray paint over shiny enamel. It is also why a cheap $2 can of paint from your local hardware shop beats out boutique solar-specific coatings that cost 40 times the price. This exact combination of principles is why a $100 DIY wall outmuscles a $5,000 rooftop array. This is not some gimmicky hack, nor is it magic. It is just 2 fundamental rules of physics stacked together. You take a maximized absorption rate, multiply it by a massively expanded surface area, and you end up pulling down a ridiculous amount of thermal power per square foot. The entire solar panel industry is well aware of these figures. They just keep quiet about it because selling you empty soda cans does not generate any recurring revenue. But grabbing the heat is just step one. The real secret to why this rig performs long past sunset comes down to where all that gathered energy goes once the metal captures it. And this is the specific reality the home heating sector tried hardest to bury. Take a look at any off-the-shelf solar air heater from a hardware store, and you'll find the exact same critical design failure. The second the sun drops behind the horizon, the internal temperature of those units plummets back to regular outdoor levels in under half an hour. You get a nice blast of warm air during the 4 hours of direct midday sun, and then absolutely nothing. By 6 p.m., your furnace fires right back up exactly like it usually does. You get a tiny bump during the day, but zero assistance when you are actually freezing. The times that really count are frigid December evenings, right before bed, and around 3 in the morning when a house hits its absolute coldest. The Sunwall attacks this problem using basic thermal mass mathematics. 200 empty aluminum beverage cans weigh roughly 100 pounds. Once you factor in the steel mounting structure, the rear absorber plate, and the insulated box, you have about 150 pounds of dense metal hanging on your exterior wall. The specific heat capacity of aluminum is 0.9 joules per gram per degree Kelvin. Do the math on a fully charged system. 150 pounds of metal warmed 40 degrees Kelvin higher than your ambient room temperature. That equates to storing nearly 3 megajoules of usable thermal energy directly inside the wall structure. That 3 megajoules is enough raw power to lift the temperature of a 600 square foot cabin by 12 degrees across a full night, from midnight until 7 a.m., all while you sleep comfortably and your central heating never turns on. And it does not dump all that warmth at once. As your living space begins to chill, the massive stack of cans radiates and conducts its stored heat at a speed dictated entirely by the temperature gap between the hot metal and the surrounding room. Immediately after dusk, your cans might be sitting at 180 degrees while your room is at 65. That is a delta of 115, meaning the heat transfer is rapid. By 2 a.m., the cans have dropped down to 110, and the room has warmed up to 70. Now the delta is just 40, so the flow naturally decelerates. Fast forward to 6 a.m., the cans are at 85, and the heat transfer is just a gentle seep. The entire rig manages its own output without needing a single thermostat. The metal only surrenders its thermal payload as quickly as the surrounding air actually demands it. Here's a fact most property owners completely miss. Your home's existing walls already do this, using the heat your furnace generates. Your drywall, your timber framing, your plaster, they all soak up and hold thermal energy. The fundamental issue is that your home's built-in mass is located on the wrong side of your insulation. So all that expensive heat your furnace produced simply bleeds outward into the freezing night air instead of radiating inward to keep you warm. The Sunwall represents the first time your thermal mass is actually oriented the right way. You have black-coated metal pointing at the sun, backed by heavy insulation defending against the freezing outdoors. Every ounce of that stored energy is forced to dump inward toward the people who actually paid to generate it. The Lawrence Berkeley lab proved this exact phenomenon over the course of the 1979 winter season. Test cabins equipped with passive Sunwall storage maintained overnight interior temperatures 14 degrees warmer than identical cabins lacking that thermal mass. They ran the same furnaces, faced the same outdoor weather, but the sole differentiator was that dense, heat-holding wall. That is 14 degrees of completely free heat bleeding out of those cans all night long after sunset. The Department of Energy put the findings on record, but nobody in the residential HVAC game did a thing with it. By 1986, the initiative lost its funding, and the entire catalog of research was boxed up and forgotten without ever seeing a commercial rollout. This nocturnal battery effect is an absolute reality. The calculations are public, and the genuine value of this entire setup lies in what it does between midnight and sunrise, not what it does during your lunch break. However, none of those benefits matter without the third major trick, which pushes all that stored heat into your house without relying on a single fan. This is the detail where most DIYers fail, and it is the exact mechanism that makes the entire setup truly passive. Every store-bought solar heater relies on mechanical blowers. They feature a tiny electric motor mounted near the top, paired with a thermostat that kicks the blower on once the panel reaches 80 degrees, forcing that warmed air down through a duct into your room. That little motor constantly siphons 30 watts from your electrical grid, and eventually it breaks. Blower motors fry. Sensors short out. The ductwork gets choked with debris. Most broken-down solar heaters sitting on old cabins died due to mechanical fan failures, not because the actual heat collection failed. This Sunwall eliminates the fan entirely. It circulates air through that tower of cans, relying strictly on gravity and shifting densities. Heated air is simply lighter than cold air, roughly 9% lighter for every 10-degree Kelvin shift. As the cans warm the column of air trapped inside to 180 degrees, that heated mass naturally wants to climb. It forces its way out the top vent and spills directly into your living space. As that hot air escapes, it creates a vacuum that sucks frigid floor-level air in through the bottom vent. The entire cycle powers itself using nothing but raw physics. Engineers refer to this as the chimney effect, a concept the Romans mastered with their heated floors back in the 2nd century. A vertical shaft of hot air accelerates upward at a speed determined by the square root of the temperature gap combined with the total height of that shaft. A 4-foot-high stack of cans running at 180 degrees pumps roughly 300 cubic feet of air per minute right through itself. That is equivalent to a third of the power of a standard bathroom exhaust fan, but it runs on absolutely zero electricity, operating continuously for as long as those cans remain hotter than the room. This is also where the specific shape of the cans becomes crucial once again. When air glides over a standard flat panel, it moves in what is called laminar flow. A sluggish boundary layer of air clings to the flat surface, meaning only the dead center of the air current actually absorbs the heat. That central core shoots through quickly and leaves without grabbing much thermal energy. Because of this laminar drag, a flat plate collector wastes about 40% of its maximum heat transfer potential. Forcing air through a staggered stack of cylinders causes something entirely different. Those curved metal edges violently churn the air into a turbulent flow. That stubborn boundary layer gets shattered. Every single molecule of air is forced to slam into hot aluminum at least 3 separate times on its journey to the top, effectively tripling the amount of usable heat dumped into that airstream. If the metal itself is at 190 degrees, the air blasts out of that top vent at a scorching 180. A flat panel at that exact same metal temperature would only spit out air at about 120 degrees. This turbulent flow principle is why any legitimate passive solar heater designed since the 1970s incorporates some kind of textured gathering surface. Sandia National Laboratories released the exact comparisons back in 1974. Whether you use cylinders, fins, baffles, or packed rocks, anything that disrupts that smooth laminar flow will triple your heat transfer. This aluminum Sunwall is simply the most cost-effective application of that exact physics principle ever devised, and the blueprints have been sitting quietly in engineering journals for 5 decades. The entire circulation loop costs literally nothing to run. You have no mechanical parts to burn out, 0 electricity pulling from the grid, and no messy filters to swap out every fall. Your only required maintenance is wiping the dust off the front glass a couple of times a year. A properly constructed Sunwall has a proven track record of running for more than 30 harsh winters without a single repair. The retail version that has been marketed in Newfoundland since 2005 is essentially this precise blueprint stuffed into a better-looking box. Those commercial units boast an almost flawless track record of reliability spanning 2 full decades of field use. Yet, all this impressive physics means absolutely nothing unless you can realistically build the rig over a weekend. Fortunately, construction is incredibly straightforward, though nearly every online tutorial messes up one crucial step. At its core, you are just assembling a single box, a glass front, punching 2 holes through your wall, and stacking some cans. You're going to need about 200 empty, clean aluminum cans. Standard 12-ounce soda, beer, or seltzer cans are perfect. Give them a rinse, rip off the plastic labels, and let them dry inside overnight. Next, bore a 1-inch hole straight through the top and bottom of each can to allow airflow. Honestly, the drilling is the only part of this project that feels like a chore. A drill press knocks out 50 cans in 10 minutes. A standard hand drill takes a bit more elbow grease, but gets the job done just fine. The main housing is simply a plywood box painted black, 4 feet wide, 8 feet high, and 6 inches deep. Standard 3/4-inch plywood works perfectly for the frame. You need to line the back panel with 1-inch foil-faced, rigid foam insulation, keeping the foil side pointing inward. It is absolutely vital that the rear of this box does not bleed heat into the freezing exterior wall behind it. That foam board runs about $15 and gives you an R value of 7. That is plenty to guarantee that 90% of your captured thermal energy pushes forward into your house, rather than leaking backward to the outside. Stack your prepared cans inside the box into vertical tubes, 4 columns wide and 50 cans high. Bond them together using a high-temp silicone adhesive. Then coat the entire inside of the box, along with the front-facing half of every can, in a flat matte black high-temperature spray paint. You need a paint rated for at least 300 degrees Fahrenheit. If you cheap out with standard satin black, it will blister and peel off the second it hits 150 degrees, turning your collector into a trash heap in a few months. The front cover is a single 4x8 sheet of clear tempered glass, secured to the plywood edges with outdoor-grade silicone. You can grab tempered glass for around $25 at a local glass supplier. Make sure you get single pane, not double glazed. Double pane glass reflects far too much light off that second inner layer, instantly slashing your heat absorption by 6%. Next, bore 2 4-inch holes completely through your home's exterior wall, directly behind where the collector will sit. One down by the floor line, the other up near the ceiling. The lower hole serves as the cold air intake. The upper one is your heated air exhaust. You absolutely must install a one-way backflow flap on each hole. If you omit these flappers, the whole airflow cycle will run backwards on freezing overcast days, actively sucking icy air right into your living space. If you source the cans for free and buy the rest of the materials brand new, you are looking at roughly $100 total. The entire assembly takes maybe 6 to 8 hours, easily doable on a Saturday. There are no permits to pull, no wiring to run, and no need to hire a contractor. You just bolt it to a south-facing exterior wall, and it starts working the hour you finish. I need to point out 2 critical details that most internet guides completely ignore. First, do not mount the box flush against your siding. Use standoffs to leave at least a 2-inch air gap behind it. If you do not, trapped moisture will rot the plywood from the outside in within a couple of years. Second, paint the exterior of your cabinet white. If you paint the outside black, the wooden frame itself acts as a massive heat sink, radiating your hard-earned energy out into the cold night sky. The inside must be flat black, but the outside needs to be white, because thermodynamics are much more important than matching your exterior trim. To make sure it is dialed in, just tape a cheap $5 dial thermometer right to the upper exhaust vent. On a sunny, cloudless day right around noon, that air should be blasting out between 140 and 180 degrees. The exact number will fluctuate based on your geographic latitude and the sun's seasonal angle. If it is blowing under 120, either your paint is too glossy or your rear insulation is failing. If it registers over 200, it means you forgot to drill the holes in your cans and the airflow is choked. Both are quick fixes. Get it dialed in over a weekend, and this wall will manage itself for the next 3 decades. Before you hoist that rig onto your siding, let me reiterate one thing. Do not skip those one-way flappers on the vents. If you leave them out, a strong gust of wind on a nasty winter night will throw that whole convection loop into reverse, pumping freezing air into your bedroom until the sun comes up. A couple of $2 dryer-style flaps are the cheapest insurance policy on earth, and the success of the entire build relies on them. If you think a $100 DIY Sunwall keeping your house warm all night is impressive, you need to see what a $700 homemade ice battery can do to a massive $4,000 air conditioning unit. Click right here to watch that breakdown next.